Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Welcome to My Awakening, which is the most important part of this whole entire blog. And I really wanted to start talking to you about the correlation or interrelationship between thoughts, or thoughts, physical, emotional, and spirituality, because this is something we're going into an uncharted realm here, and we're really having a bit of a look at our different realities because everybody's different. And I think with NLP and understanding how it works is that our imprinting part of our life has a huge big part of our path, and unless we're really aware of everything that we've gone through or everything of who we are at this very time, moment in time, can we really understand the dynamic of self? And I think that's really important because there's so many parts of it, and understanding it takes a very long time. And I find that it's a long life, a journey of life that really gets you to know about who you are, and who you really are is really important. And I find this to be a really strong part of leadership these days. I think knowing parts of the self is a part of leadership. My insights and my development to my consciousness and what I stand for are completely different to what someone else will stand for. And that's really important because diversity is a very key to becoming who you're going to become. And I find that a lot of people are very, and especially in the realm of work that I do as a healer, I think a lot of healers don't actually respect the emotional side of life and that emotion. And it's quite funny as I begin to take this to the next level in everything that I do. I find it interesting how people don't know that interrelationship between thought, emotion. Thoughts give rise to certain emotions. So when we have thoughts, it gives rise to anxiety, let's just pass say. Then that anxiety turns back into thought, and then as we keep in this huge big feedback loop, some people get stuck. And I find it interesting how in an awakening a lot of people are still not quite understanding of how to listen to the self and listen to what's actually going on. And that comes down to your life experiences so far and your conditioning. And I find it a very big part of a lot of people's life, especially my own. And it's very important to understand that emotional side of you. I think a lot of it is discredited because when let's just take anxiety and we take what it does for us, sometimes the thought ignite the emotion, or the emotion ignites the thoughts, and it really sits in the lungs. And that's where a lot of people find breathing difficult and a lot of that constriction. And plus, when we constrict the diaphragm, we're actually suppressing our stomach, and we get abdominal problems, and a lot of people feel a lot of sickness because of it. So it's really important how it all really works. I think where spirituality comes into it, if we were to take that thought, that line of understanding, because that's very important to understand. Understanding is an emotion, right? So when we have that understanding, spirituality would be our relationship with life, and a relationship and expectations on all of us, how it really affects the thought, the emotion, the physical, because that's very important. It follows into the body. I think a lot of people, if I really had to talk about what really happens behind the scenes, I think we ignore the body. And my body's never lied. If I'm having a bit of a fight with someone and my body says, get out of here as soon as possible, well, I'm not going to sit there and say, oh, no, I'll stay and see what happens. I mean, you've got your flight or fight response for a reason. Use it and know that it's okay, even if you've read it wrong. So this is a problem. No one's willing to make the mistakes. However, I'm willing to make those mistakes and want to be forgiven for it. And at the end of the day, we're all forgiven for our mistakes anyways. Regardless, I think a lot of people don't actually understand the correlation between thought, emotion, physical, spirituality. And these realms are interconnected and interwoven. And because people are unable to take 5 minutes from their busy, busy life to learn about all of this, well, that's the reasons why a lot of people can't find peace. And it's sad because the more we build the thought, let's just say we're heightening the thought, the thought becomes a pattern, and then the pattern becomes something that we run automatically. And I know definitely that I've had to pay my time in getting rid of all these thoughts because it ran its course. And because I ran it for so long, it's kind of like running a program or an algorithm. The algorithm it learns that it wants you to keep doing this. And so people actually lower their vibration because the thought keeps coming into it. And instead of actually taking responsibility and awareness of the thought and letting it getting out of control and forgiving yourself for it, not knowing that you didn't actually know what had been running, a lot of people don't take responsibility for it. And that's the first step. And I find that even in my life of dating people, I've had to learn to take responsibility for things that I shouldn't really be taking responsibility for. I mean, everybody shows up, everybody's got their part to play. That's not my responsibility to own other people's stuff. You've got to meet halfway. For me, I've always been on the side of I will take as much responsibility as I see fit, but there's things that I just won't take responsibility for. I think a lot of people discredit how they feel as well because they're too afraid. If that person doesn't respect you anyway for how you feel, that's not the person that you want to have in your life anyway. And I find that to be the most important part. And I think in an awakening, we need to start exploring the interrelationship and the complexity of self and the complexity between thought, emotion, physical, and spirituality. I think that's the most important thing for anyone. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter what culture, black, white, purple, blue, triangle, square, circle. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because all walks of life will have these issues and everyone's got them. If you're hanging around people that think they don't have any issues, those are the people you want to stay away from. You don't want to be involved with them because that's perfection. And I find that perfection is a very soul destroyer of this earth and this planet because nature's not perfect. And if you actually compare yourself back to nature, which is what my message was in phase 1, was your connection to nature. That's the first step in getting to know who you are. If you can compare yourself and connect back to nature, they'll really show you that there is no such thing as perfection. And I find that to be very, very important in this whole work. So understanding the complexity and the interrelationship and finding understanding is very important. And I say this to people, if you're going to go to a healer and you're going to do this very expensive work, because it's expansive of consciousness, that's what you need to do. You need to find a healer that respects your emotion at that present time. And I find it to be hard because a lot of people feel sorry for someone or they feel like they have to help that person. I don't help people. People think that I'm doing this blog to help people and I just don't. I deliver a perspective. I deliver a perception and I deliver awareness. That's all I do. I don't help people. I never started this to help people. I don't believe in helping people anyway. Can't help someone that won't help themselves anyway. So you got to really learn boundaries. People aren't going to take responsibility. What on earth have you got to do with that? Like, why is my question? And I get this is me ranting on about people's lack of awareness between the masculine and the feminine as well. And that's just something that I think happens in time, and understanding that we are very much a part of a huge big ecosystem, and that when we are not we're not acknowledging those two energies and those two major components to everyone, because I have feminine and I have masculine. My masculine visits me all the time at work because I've got to get shit done. My feminine is there when it needs to create something, and there's a difference, there's a balance. Yeah, and it's very, very important that everyone on planet Earth has those two equal energies. Yes, one may be more dominant than the other, but I think understanding self is possibly one of the most powerful things that you can do. And finding purpose. That's very, very important, is finding purpose through understanding all of this is very important. And especially in an awakening. An awakening is where we have downtime. Downtime doesn't mean you go on social media 24/7 and panic and go, oh, I've got to get this and get that. I mean, don't get me wrong. If you've had a bit of a break from it, you want to get back on that horse, then go for it. But you've got to be ready for it. And I find every generation has their issues, but I think this is the biggest one to hit us, is this whole phone thing. But anyways, we're getting off topic. So the one thing that I want to introduce for the awakening is the interrelationship between thought, physical, emotion, and spirituality, and how it all links together from my perspective. And I'll go into it in detail. And thank you all for listening. This is probably the best one.